Good evening, everyone. Hope the microphone's a little bit closer to the face. We take recommendations around here. So anything that we can make the show better, we will. Hopefully, in the future, we'll actually have a mic that I can carry on because I know I do a lot of the board stuff over here as well. And welcome. Thank you for being here. This is the pregame show. I think this is the first official pregame show. We did one a little bit earlier in the season. What this consists of is just a quick in and out what you kind of can expect, my score predictions, X Factor stuff like that. The whole week of show slash what we have over there on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, combined into one, and just the outcome of the game, all that stuff. And we're going to jump straight into it because we don't waste time over here. Over on whatever you want to call it. I need to come up with a name for this YouTube channel. um, Carolina fans are very creative, so I'm sure we can figure something out there. But we're going to jump straight into my score prediction, which I've struggled with. And I know this is going to sound completely, what's the word, unjustified maybe, or dumb, if you will. But I genuinely had a hard time with the score prediction because I wanted more times than not. I say 9 times out of 10, I told myself this is a Missouri game, like a 7 to 10 point, maybe even 14 point game. My final score prediction is 31-21 Missouri. But even then, I don't feel confident in it. And I'll tell you why. Going back to last season, even going back to the beginning of this year, when South Carolina took on Georgia, those were games where Carolina, on paper, in terms of the spread, stuff like that, just did not belong in those games. But they were in them. They beat Tennessee last year by a lot. It was at home. Sure, I'll give you that. They beat Clemson on the road, the game that, again, on paper, via the spread, I don't think they should have won. And then Georgia, I think Georgia was like a 28-point favorite this year. They had a 14-3 lead at halftime, and lost by 10, I think 24-14. So it's these types of games are just weird under Shane Beamer, man. Like, he either finds a way to be in that game, and whether it's lack of execution, whether it's a missed play, whether the other team just happened to make a play, whatever the case may be, they've either just kind of not finished or they have finished. But they've been in those games. And I think that's kind of why you see the line where it's at right now. I think it currently is at like 7.5, depending on where you look. Earlier on the ESPN app, I can look right here. I have the ESPN app here. Yeah, currently 7.5 point favorite for Missouri at home. And when that first came out, it seemed a little low to me. But the more and more I watch the film, the more and more I just remember what Shane Beamer and his teams have been able to do in these he can't win games. It's like, okay, I can kind of see it. But I've always had that gut feeling in the back. It's like this somehow Shane Beamer pulls this game out. But then I told myself I can't pick Carolina to win both this week and next week. Spoiler alert a little bit for next week, and I'll talk about that in just a second. I had them picked to win against North Carolina. And this isn't to cover my basis. This is, I still think maybe not today after seeing everything. I think today, if the teams were the same, I would go back and pick North Carolina. But I didn't see the offensive line being as bad as they were, and losing a very important piece in Henry as well early on. But still had a chance to win that game. I had them beating who else? Tennessee. And then I had them beating Florida, and they should have beat Florida. Really, the only games that kind of didn't look good at the end of the day were the Tennessee pick, in my opinion. But that's beside the point. I don't see Missouri as much as I can give you. They possibly upset Texas A&M just because of how the offense looks for Texas A&M. And don't get me wrong, that defense is extremely good. especially that defensive line for Texas A&M. But if there's a team that you can beat, it's one that doesn't have a good offense. So that kind of went into my influence as well of what do I do this week, and that's why I've settled on a 31-21 score in favor of Missouri. Now, you can win this game, and I know weirdly enough, there's the doom and gloom out there, then there's the hopeful fans, and I'm kind of in between as the unemotional, the no dog in the fight kind of opinion, if you will. Where it's one of those. I'm not shocked if Carolina loses by 10. I'm not shocked if Carolina wins by 10. And as weird as that sounds, as bad as they looked defensively against Florida, where you had that 10-point lead and you should have won, I wouldn't be shocked by either outcome, truly. And it's because of how South Carolina can exploit and what they're good at offensively and what Missouri might not be as good at defensively. But if you flip that around, Missouri is extremely good at what South Carolina has struggled to limit the past couple, and not even limit, to stop the past couple of games. So I could see it going either way. I don't like it being in Missouri, but so that's kind of where I'm at with the score prediction of being 31-21. There are keys to winning this game, and we always try to get it here regardless of whether I have a picked win or lose. The first key is whoever steps up in right tackle, which, in my opinion, if he's healthy, I'm not sure if he is or isn't. I have not had the chance to pay attention to the injury report or anything, but I'm sure it will be up over on Gamecocks Digest here at some point today, if not early in the morning. I would go with Tree at left tackle, Trey at left guard, Nick at center, Trevon at right guard, and hopefully Sky Moore, not Sky Moore. Isn't it? I don't know why. Moore. We'll just go with that at right tackle. Still trying to learn the roster. I deserve all the hate for that as well. Hopefully he's healthy enough that he can fill in there. If not, Wanamaker or Fugar, whoever steps up, that right tackle position becomes the most important position this game. Even outside the nickel, as crazy as that may seem to fans, that right tackle position this weekend is the most important position this weekend. You got to show up and you have to be able to play, because this offensive line, when they did all the tweaking they did this bye week, they came out in the first two plays. It was bad. It was sloppy. And then they gained their composure and they figured it out. And then they moved this ball. They protected Spencer Rattler. They did an extremely good job. And then Lee gets hurt and it doesn't have the same continuity that it had at the beginning of that game, right? So whoever steps up has to be good. That's key number one. And not just good, like you have to have a B plus or a B grade kind of game, in my opinion. Key number two, your offense is your best defense. I'm going to say it again because I want to make sure it's reiterated over and over and over again. I'm not here to bash a player. I'm not here to bash a coach. I think there are great things on film from this defense. I think there are bad things on film from this defense. What you have to do right now is help this defense. And how you do that is having sustained drives. And we talked about that for the Florida game, right? Sorry about the TV doing its own thing. We talked about that for the Florida game, as that was key. You need to have sustained drives. Well, let's talk about those drives. 7 plays for 75 yards. It took 2 minutes and 58 seconds. 5 plays for 75 yards. It took 2 minutes and 6 seconds. 5 plays, 2 yards, 3 minutes. 6 plays, 3 minutes and 15 seconds. Then you had another one for a minute. Then you start the half. You have a 4.5 minute drive. Then you have a 1:38 drive. Then you have a 3:42 drive, a 2:21 drive, a 1:53 drive. So you kind of see where I'm going. Your longest drive was 4 minutes and 34 seconds. Now, a lot of times people kind of get confused by what I mean in terms of sustained drives. It's like, well, are we not supposed to go score and be explosive? No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you need the explosives. You need to be balanced, especially with a defensive team that has struggled recently, especially with how many downs they're playing. I believe the defense was on the field for 86 snaps. That's not good for a defense that has to get their feet under them and are still kind of learning at certain positions. Like Nicky Minwari, he's still learning at the nickel position. He's done good things on film. It's there. It shows. But your offense has to be your defense this game. And I'm not telling you every single offensive possession has to go for 6 minutes. It don't. I do think it don't. It does not. I do think you need to have at least 2 of those kinds of drives where you have that 6.5 minute drive that ends in 7. Can't kick field goals in this game. You just can't. And a lot of I'll probably get a lot of disagreement with this. 4th down, if you're in the 4th and 1, 4th and 2 range inside of the 35, I'm going for it. Again, that's why I'm hearing Shane Beamer is the head coach, and that might not be the right decision. But I know I can't kick field goals this game. So I'm going for it. But back to my original point. I think you need 2 drives that are around the 6.5 minute drive, 6.5 minute range, ending in 7. So having 2 drives that end in 7, so 14 points, and take out about 12 minutes of the clock, about half of a first half, half of the second half, whatever you want to call it. It takes up pretty much a quarter. That helps you, in my opinion. Giving the defense that much time to rest helps you, in my opinion. So that's my second key, is having at least 2 drives that consist of that 6.5 minute that end in 7. My third key, and I'm not even going to go with the easy one because Luther Burden and limiting Luther Burden, that's as easy of a take as there is. And I don't want to be that. So for me, and I thought about this, I was like, what could the third key of this game be? For me, again, and I've said this a lot in the past couple of games, but for me, the third most important is establishing a wide receiver 2. And it goes into with my bold takes that we're about to say here in just a second. Looking at the time, we got about 7 minutes before we wrap it up and get y'all out of here. You need a number 2 receiver. I think that's what has to happen. I think that's what, if you're going to win, needs to happen. And that isn't just anyone. I think that's Nicholas Harbor. I think he showed last game that, and not just him, the coaching staff showed it. He go be put out there, and he was. He was out there a number of times. I think this is the best game, if any. If you're going to find a way to win this game, is establish a number 2 receiver, and it's got to be Nicholas Harbor, right? It can be Brown, it can be Lewis. I'm not sitting here telling you can't win if it's someone else, but it has to be someone. And with how physical these defensive backs are for Missouri, who better to go off than Nicholas Harbor? And that's my third one. So 3 keys to the game for you to win. Right tackle, most important position of this game. You got to get it figured out. Your offense is your best defense. I think you need at least 2 6 to 6.5 minute drives. And if they're longer, fantastic. But I think you need at least 2 of those. And then the third one, you need a receiver to come up and be wide receiver 2. And I do think that's going to be Nicholas Harbor. So there's your score predictions, 31-21. I also just gave you the 3 key success, how you can win this game. Let's give you some bold takes, right, in this game. Currently, as we look here, if you look at Missouri's past 5 games, because that's just what shows up on the ESPN app, they've given up 21 to Kentucky, 39 to LSU, 21 to Vanderbilt, 27 to Memphis, and 27 to Kansas State. So it's almost I'm not going to say given. Nothing's a given in college football. You look at history. History tells you can score at least 20 points minimum on this defense. My bold take is Carolina scores over 40. Now, why is that a bold take? Because they've only scored 40 twice this season. Against Furman and against – no, they haven't scored 40 at all this season. They just scored it – sorry, I read that wrong. They were close against Florida. They got 39. But I think they scored 40 against Missouri. I think it can happen. That's a bold take. And again, let me explain bold take for a lot of people. Bold takes for me are more the likelihood of it happening is slim, but there is a chance. 40 points happening is slim because you've only done it once. That was against Furman. So that's my first bold take is South Carolina drops 40 points. The second bold take is you run for over 160. I think you have 160 yards on the ground or more. Now, again, not necessarily the biggest of bold takes because I think you can do it. I think your best game this year is 150-ish. I think it was the Florida game, if I'm not mistaken. But I have that as a bold take because I don't think it's all going to come from Mario. I think a good chunk of it's going to come from Spencer Rattler and how he uses his legs. I think Spencer's going to have 30, 40 yards rushing. Again, bold take, but that's what we're here for. We're here for the bold takes. We're not here for the semi-warm takes. And then the third one is you finally, and because I don't remember off the top of my head when the last one you had was. Did you have one against you had one against Tennessee? So never mind. I think you have or force 2 or more turnovers in this game. I don't know how. Don't know where it's going to come from. Just think you do. I think you force 2 turnovers. You haven't necessarily won the turnover battle, or I say won, convincingly won. I think you've won the turnover battle most games, if I'm not mistaken. But those are my 3 bold takes. So you got the rushing yard for 160 or more. I think South Carolina drops 40. And the third one was I think you force 2 turnovers. But hey, that's the pregame show. We're getting you out of here a little bit earlier than 20 minutes, but that's what we try to do for y'all, get you in and out. Got your final score predictions. You can win this game. Again, I'm not going to be shocked if you do. I'm not going to be shocked if you don't. Under Shane Beamer, there's no telling. It can happen. So will it happen? I don't know. But again, the spoiler alert, I think if there's a team you're going to upset on the road between Missouri and Texas A&M, it's probably going to be Texas A&M. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here. Please do not forget to like and subscribe, Carolina Nation. Y'all have, or Gamecock Nation, you have done a tremendous job of supporting me in the short amount of time that I've been here. And I know you're going to continue to do so. We will see you Sunday for the post-game show. Y'all have a good one.